Greetings to a very relevant Audit Tuesday topic today, GRC and 2024, what to hope for and what to expect. To help us understand the threat as well as the possible solutions, we have cyber and GRC expert Carrie Jabs. Hi, Carrie.
Hi, Ashley. It's great to see you, and thank you for having me here today.
Thank you for being here. We appreciate it. So first, Carrie, can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and your background in cyber and compliance?
Sure. So my area of expertise is in cybersecurity and risk and compliance. I have over 20 years of experience in global regulatory compliance, cybersecurity, and advisory, specializing in PCI DSS, as well as managing risk and other compliance assessments for large organizations. I have built and managed both US and global compliance programs while providing advisory and cybersecurity support to other organizations to make sure that their regulatory obligations have been met. And then for the last 4 years or so, I've been working as a cybersecurity advisor, helping organizations and their CISOs understand their current security posture and develop security program roadmaps and reports for their board and risk committee meetings. And then in May of this year, I completed a master's of science in global security, conflict, and cybercrime from NYU.
Congratulations, that's great.
Thank you.
So before we get into 2024, let's talk a little bit about what happened in 2023. How do you think the SEC charge against SolarWinds and their CISO for falsifying their compliance guidelines has affected the GRC community?
So I think that the SolarWinds incident highlighted the need for organizations to reevaluate their strategies and implement robust cybersecurity practices and improve their overall cybersecurity posture. And I think that there's several ways in which the SolarWinds attack affected the broader cybersecurity landscape and GRC community. But I think it mostly heightened security awareness and brought attention to areas like supply chain risk and incident response. It also reinforced the importance of continuous monitoring, threat detection, and the adoption of zero trust principles. And while I agree that organizations and individuals should be held accountable for their actions and always trust but verify when formally attesting to security practices, unfortunately, I think that the SEC is holding SolarWinds and its CISO accountable for activities that to some degree are taking place across many organizations. I'm not specifically talking about fraud, and there was some clear negligence on the part of the CISO, but claiming that security measures have been implemented across the organization when there's so many environments and processes that do not have these controls in place. And I don't think this is always done with malicious intent. For example, organizations today undergo regular audits where people across the company are always attesting to the validation of having protective measures that they believe are in place, and they can prove it during the audit. However, there may not be those ongoing assurances and regular assessments that are performed that can prove organizations are continuously maintaining what they have claimed to have in place during an audit. So, and just one more thing, that lastly, I think that organizations need to make sure that the person that they're calling their CISO is not just the head of the security department, but also has the expertise and responsibility of security across the organization. So a CISO who works in healthcare may be great at his or her job, but that doesn't mean that they can be effective in the same role, say in financial services. So I think it's important to understand that the industry that you're in, and not just how specific technology solutions function when they're implemented.
Yeah, and Carrie, do you think the SEC and the feds then collectively were trying to send a signal to the industry, or?
Absolutely. And it may have come across kind of harsh, but I think it's a very critical point and people need to take it seriously.
Got it.
And how do you think the GRC community will react to this in 2024?
So I think it's clear that the GRC community has identified various key issues that need attention, but I'm not sure that they're really going to know where to start or how to prioritize. But my hope for the GRC community is that they just stop talking about the problem and start taking some action. I think that a starting point and one key initiative, not just for DoD contractors, but for all organizations, should be like the focus on the development of skill sets for critical roles to ensure that employees at all levels are properly trained. We need to step back, look at ways to improve cybersecurity in the IT workforce. And by that, I mean a revamping of education at all levels, including establishing a set of requirements for organizations to measure the effectiveness of their C-level executives and even their board members. So, I mean, people need to be better trained on, what to look for and how to respond. But going forward, senior level employees and executives will need to be well versed in both their technical skills and business and operational skills to understand how their actions and decisions can impact the overall security and risk to their organization. So one thing that comes to mind is the effectiveness of this thing that we call annual security awareness training. So instead of just checking a box for that annual training, that really doesn't satisfy the intent of what is required. Organizations should take it a step further with some non-generic training to help ensure that people really are adequately trained to perform their role and follow all company policies and appropriate IT and security best practices.
Yeah, and let me say, so the SEC, that was a criminal suit, but what we see is a lot of just civil suits, right? And this type of stuff is probably going to be in the lawsuits as well in 2024, right?
Absolutely. And I think there's also a dependency, on the teams reporting into these people who are being held accountable for what has
Right.
happened here, that are telling them that everything is good, everything's in place. I mean, they're passing audits. I mean, they have certifications. The certifications are saying that the same things that are in place are not actually in place at all.
That was the SEC.
Yeah.
Take it away, Ashley.
Okay, so CMMC 2.0 came out in 2023. Do you see more DoD contractors taking this serious in 2024? And if so, how?
I think everyone wants to enhance their cybersecurity posture. I mean, I don't know if they will take it any more seriously in 2024, but I also don't think it's going to be ignored because, of course, organizations have the potential to win some pretty large DoD contracts if they've been, assessed and certified. So, but I think it will be challenging and a lot of work for security practitioners. I think that part of what I think will be the most challenging is their rollout and adherence to the CMMC program. Especially for organizations that currently provide or want to start offering DoD contract services. I think it will probably look similar to the rollout of PCI DSS, which today is still an ongoing process with compliance deadlines, requirements to adhere to the latest versions of these frameworks, and requirements to assess new and existing implemented controls on a regular basis. I mean, obviously PCI and CMMC are different data types, but I think the comparison makes a lot of sense because both types are, extremely sensitive information. They require like strong protection measures, and they use a standard framework. They're similar in the ways that some organizations will have to perform self-assessments. Some will have to undergo independent third-party assessments on a regular basis. Both need like a qualified, and certified assessor to perform these audits. And I think that that assessment approach, again, is similar for both of those.
Got it. Yeah.
Okay, so there's been a lot of talk about zero trust, and often it means enterprises have to automate their practices, especially around identities. So do you see this automation creeping more into GRC in 2024?
I think so, and I hope so. I mean, when you attempt to implement a zero trust model, I mean, you should assume that threats can come from both inside and outside of your network. So some automation, believe it or not, I mean, we're not really starting from scratch. I think that's where people get concerned. I mean, they may already have automation in place, for laws that they already have to adhere to, like HIPAA or GDPR. Those frameworks have requirements related to data protection and identity and access controls that are fundamental aspects of zero trust and should require automation due to the complexity of these systems and networks that we use today. They're too big to monitor manually. So I do think that, putting these types of automated controls in place can help organizations understand more accurately what is going on.
Right. So Garrett, Carrie mentioned automation. So isn't this where UATest comes in, automation around identity governance now as well as in 2024?
Yeah, exactly. And actually, your three questions, that automation would help in all the cases. The SolarWinds was cited for not practicing the principle of least privilege, which is what UATest does. It's user access review, providing the evidence that the enterprise is practicing the least principle. Second, you came up with CMMC, which has it straight out. And whether you do a self-assessment or a third-party assessment, you should have a user access review. And the evidence that you reviewed the accounts that have access to the CUI. Okay. And then lastly, we talked zero trust. And we just did a whole bunch of blogs and other stuff about that, about the CISA's zero trust maturity model. And to get even out of the end zone on that, from traditional to initial, you need automation. It spells it out that says you need to be automating your governance, and that's a user access review. So yes, I see automation and thus UATest helping enterprises on all three of these areas in 2024.
Perfect. So Carrie, can you tell the audience how they can get a hold of you?
Sure. You can look me up on LinkedIn, or you can email me directly at carriejabs@gmail.com.
Awesome. And then us at UATest, you can contact us at info@uatest.com, and we'll get you going on your identity audits to automate your processes and as well as keep your identities secure and compliant in 2024. Thank you so much for being here, Carrie. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Carrie.